All right, everyone. I think we're live. I just want to make sure the audio is working. So if somebody in the chat or someone could just say yes, you can hear me, everything. I think the audio should be working. Let me just test real fast. This is the first time we're doing this, so this is going to be a live stream. That we're doing. This will be interactive. It's going to be like a webinar. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the election results, go in a little bit about what A Better Cobb is, and then after that, we're going to talk about what we can do and what we can do to make our community better and make Cobb County better. So I've got two others with me here. The first one I'll introduce is Sam Foster. So Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam.
How are you doing? All right. And the next one I'm going to introduce here is Connor Manthe. So the three of us will kind of be taking you kind of in a conversation about what happened with the election results and where we can go from here as well. So with that, I'm going to share my screen a bit here. And what we're going to be using is a software called Minty. So if you take your phones, or you can do this on your computer as well, and go to minty.com, and if you use the code 6194-8211, and you can also use that QR code that popped up right there. And so by going to that QR code, it will allow you, we'll be doing a lot of interactive questions, stuff like that, and we'll be asking you questions during this webinar. I'm testing it right now, just make sure it works. How are y'all doing today, Sam and Connor?
I'm okay.
I'm good. Just figured out a technical difficulty. I was going to echo, and I had the YouTube playing and yours playing. I was like, "What's going on?" So,
all right, sounds good now. So yeah, so I've got the Mentimeter set up on my phone. Should be, you should get kind of a confirmation as you get in there. All right, and I'll go now to the next slide. So this is going to be a little bit of a test. Basically, we're asking what district in the county do you live in? So just go on your phone, select the answer on your phone, click submit. And what you're able to see now is as people submit their solution or submit their answers. So we've got one outside of Cobb, one District 1. Let's see. We have one in District 2. Let's see as we wait for a few others to come in here. All right, so we've got a good, decent split of people around the county. I'm going to go on and go to the next question here real quick. On a scale of 1 to 10, so this is what we're going to kind of lead in here. How happy are you about the election results? So again, go to minty.com, use that 8-digit code there at the top, and these are slider questions. So you would use the slider to sit there and show how how happy you are with each of them. All right, so we're getting some results here. Looks like we're not too thrilled with national or transit. Local, we're a little bit happier with, which, for pretty good reason.
The local went pretty well.
All right. So I think that kind of fits in with a lot of what we're about to discuss here in just a second. So with that, Cobb County election results. We're going to first talk very high level presidential election results, go into kind of the county-wide ones, and then we'll talk about transit after that. So the Cobb County election results. I did this analysis, and anyone who knows me knows I'm a numbers guy. I love doing analytics, love doing analysis. And what you're seeing here is all of the counties in the state of Georgia. And on the left, I ranked them. And on the right, those are the actual margins. And Cobb County was one of only 10 Georgia counties that increased their Democratic margin from 2020. One of only 6 counties in the state that were Democratic and then increased their Democratic margin. So really we were, if you look at the graph on the left, the scatter plot, you could see that really Cobb County is one of the better performing, higher Dem margin. and also a Democratic margin change from 2020. The other counties that we were kind of grouped with are counties like Henry, Rockdale, Douglas, and Newton. And really, if you also look at that graph, you'll see that there's a lot of suburban counties. The other, kind of our peer counties, DeKalb, Clayton, Fulton, Gwinnett, all of those type of counties that we're kind of close to and, kind of vote with, they actually really underperformed their 2020 margins. And so that's kind of what's showing a very, there's the very Democratic counties, but they actually underperformed where they were in 2020. Cobb, meanwhile, we were one of the better performing counties as far as improving our dim margin, from 2020. So that's kind of encouraging. I guess it's kind of a silver lining when it comes to it. The graph on the right shows it by margins there as well. So you'll see that we increased our margin by about 2,500 from 2020. And we're right at about a 57,000 vote total margin for the Democratic, for Kamala Harris. You'll see there DeKalb, Fulton, those are typically the larger margins, but they just got crushed when it came to their performance in 2020, as well as Clayton and Gwinnett also underperformed their 2020 numbers as well. All right. So looking at the countywide results. So Kamala Harris, she did, she won Cobb County with about 57% of the vote here in Cobb County. And what she was able to do is she was able to carry the other countywide candidates along with her. So every countywide Democratic candidate did win their election. Sheriff Owens was the performed very well as well. Chairwoman Lisa Cupid, Clerk of Superior Court Connie Taylor, and the Clerk of the State Court Tanisha Phillips also was successful, and they all got more than 50%. So they all fell a little bit behind the top of the ticket, but they were able to go past the 50% and win their countywide election. Other countywide results included every incumbent state house and state Senate reps won their reelection. That happened throughout the state. I've never seen an election like that before where not a single incumbent lost. So that was kind of very interesting. So if you look at our delegation both at the state house and the state Senate, it's the same as last time. Everyone got reelected, and there were no switches from Republican to Democrat or Democrat to Republican. All three contested school board seats were won by Republicans, so they were able to hold the school board. And Sonia Allen and Carla Jackson won their uncontested races for district attorney and tax commissioner. So just kind of locally, we did win most of the, Democrats won most of the countywide results. Probably the most important one in all of this was Lisa Cupid as chairwoman. It enables us to continue to do, some advocacy and stuff at the local level to make Cobb County better. So now we're going to talk about the MSPLOST. The MSPLOST was, there's no other way to say it. It was comprehensively rejected with a 62 to 38 vote as far as no. So 62% no's, 38% yeses. The graph there on the left was the precinct level within Cobb County. So as you can see, the counties that supported Kamala Harris also supported transit. You do see kind of a positive correlation with that, but you also see a drop off. So when I looked at what would happen is even in our most Democratic counties, you would have a larger drop off as far as those who supported transit. And so basically it was a pretty comprehensively rejected. Of course, this we try to make it as bipartisan as possible, but it is a partisan typically correlation. And what we saw is a lot of Democrats also did not support the MSPLOST. And what does it mean? Well, we saw kind of two things. One is that the voters weren't aware of it before going into the voter booth. And the second one is that the voters didn't like the plan. For the ones who weren't aware of it, and I've got someone on the next slide that kind of shows it. There was a lot of people that were going into the voting booths not knowing about it yet. I know, Sam, you and I would talk to a lot of voters after they voted, and they expressed like, "Oh, I wish we would have talked to you before we voted," and know this information. So, in the ballot language, of course, was not the best ballot language out there. So that was, just something that we were fighting an uphill battle on such a short time frame. And then when it comes to voters not liking the plan, it's just tough to get people convinced on a 30-year 1% sales tax in this, in the current environment. And and it was just one of those, just whether it's timing or the plan or people just didn't know about the plan or the benefits, possibly a little bit of all of the above. That I think is, it's a lesson learned, and we move forward. And today we focus on incremental small transit improvements to improve our transit system. And in the future, we just continue advocating for more funding and support. And maybe there's a different way that we can approach this, or a different a different plan that the voters would support more.
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit on like what I saw support wise. When we were talking to people, a lot of people wanted MORTA, right? They wanted more of like a regional integration type of thing, just like off the cuff, right? I saw a lot of issues with that. A lot of people were very hung up on the mode being bus versus rail. So I think there's a lot of varieties of issues that people had with the plan. For those who didn't like the plan, but then there's also the whole subset of like there's a lot of information about the MSPLOS, this misinformation. I mean, there are people who said that we don't know where the money would go, that there's no project list, but there is very clearly a project list.
I think on top of that, we also have to acknowledge like the opposition we were going up against. So if we look at our results versus Gwinnett, obviously Gwinnett's a different environment, but they had no opposition. Basically, they had almost no opposition, and they still failed. And they got to like 45 around their percent. We had crazy opposition who was outfunded us. So that also, on the margins, for people who did see the negative information, it made it even more lopsided. So, yeah.
And this was Gwinnett's third time going also, which I think is a part of like, they might have just been more aware of it. And, just the number of people that we talked to that weren't aware of it, even after the yes and no campaigns were out in the field and doing their, I mean, it almost the outlier, the exclusion was people who knew about it one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so it was
probably 80% of the effect. I mean, it was a huge, very few people knew that I talked to in the streets. This is very rare anybody knew.
And I mean, that just goes to just for people who weren't aware. A lot of the pro campaign didn't even start till about 8 to 10 weeks before election day. And it was just, when you're talking about a very heated national environment that we experienced, it was just hard to crack through all of that noise and have those conversations with voters. When we did talk to voters one-on-one, I think it was closer to a 50-50 as far as support, especially depending on where you were in the county. But when it came to, just people walking in the ballot booth, not knowing what was on the ballot and seeing a new 1% 30-year sales tax, I mean, without them knowing the benefit they were going to get, it's a hard question to ask for voters. And so I kind of go in a little bit more into those two things, like were voters not aware, or did voters just not like the plan? And so I have an excerpt here of the Marietta Daily Journal as they were talking to voters as they were coming out of the ballot booth, where they did a couple of articles about this, where they would talk to voters coming out of the ballot booth, and the vast majority of voters that they spoke with, even after all their articles and after everyone's mailers and after everyone's outreach campaigns, the majority of voters that they spoke to were not aware that it was on the ballot. And so I would like to see, hopefully there's some polling done afterwards just to see, how many people even saw anything before going to the ballot booth. I think that would be very good to know, just, maybe people are more receptive if they were able to get information beforehand. And then I've got on the right. So even if people know about it, this is the results of the Metro Atlanta Speaks poll that Atlanta Regional Commission does. And they asked two questions. One was, how important do you see an improved public transit system for Metro Atlanta? And then the second question is, are you willing to pay more in taxes to fund expanded regional public transit that includes buses or rail? And you'll notice that in Cobb County, that 89% of people said that it was either very important or somewhat important for an improved public transit system for Metro Atlanta. Meanwhile, only about 43% wanted to pay more in taxes. And so I've got a little, I think this was shared on our Discord earlier, this little meme, this cartoon, whatever. Everyone wants public transit, but then when you ask them to, who's going to pay for it, suddenly everyone doesn't want to pitch in on that. So it's definitely it's an interesting, difficult dichotomy that we have to face as we look in the future and figure out how we find solutions for public transit.
I think two things to note with that as well. when people were going to vote, when they did exit polls, they noticed that most people were voting on the economy. So I think a lot of people right now are feeling a little bit down on their economic circumstances. Also, Clayton is also on that survey, and they said they wouldn't pay for it in similar numbers to Cobb, and they joined MARTA in 2014. So I think there's a general mood right now in the metro that's anti-tax.
And to your point, the transportation used to be the number one problem in this metro land speaks, and now it's down to like fourth or fifth most important. So we just have this post-COVID shift, whether it's whether it's inflationary, people just have a little bit of a tighter wallet. People aren't commuting as much, so it's not as painful for them. One of those, maybe all of those a little bit might kind of be changing some public perception. But needless to say, we will be advocating for better public transit, whether it's a giant MSPOS or small victories here and there. That's something that we're going to continue to be, advocating for and pushing for. So with that, I do ask, this is using that Minty again. So again, if you go to minty.com and use that 8-digit code 61948211, you'll be able to vote using your phone to answer the question, what should Cobb do to expand transit?
I feel like it'll be one person who answered. Oh, two. Okay.
All right, we're up to 2. I see we got about 10 people right now on the live stream. So we'll wait here for a minute just for people to kind of participate. Again, going to minty.com with an 8-digit code 61948211. There we go. We got 3 with Join MARTA.
The Metro Atlanta Regional Transit Agency. Or I think I said that wrong on the M.
All right. There we go. So I think that kind of echoes, we're seeing everyone kind of go in on the just join MARTA. I think it's simpler. I think it's, and hopefully in a few years we'll be in a better environment for that to possibly be the big dream that we can continue to push for. But until then, there's smaller improvements that we can make. I think one of the things just happened with the micro transit, which is like neighborhood shuttles that literally just launched a couple of weeks ago. I took a ride on it. It was $2.50, and that is in comparison to what would have been a $22 Uber ride. So as more and more people start taking things like that, I think we're going to get more people to take transit, want expanded transit, and hopefully we'll see it as it expands more. So it's pretty clear that, it may be not shocking, but in kind of the people watching us, we're pretty comprehensive about joining MARTA. So that's definitely not shocking, but interesting at the same time.
I think something to note with that as well is once we start, so we were dealing with a lot of talking points about empty buses, ridership going down. If we start to find different ways, attack here and there, get the ball rolling to like stop the bleeding and increase ridership before we get to a point for another big referendum, we can kill some of those talking points and make the campaigning for whatever comes next easier. So we are going to have to do the small stuff before we get to MSPLOS 2 or MARTA or whatever.
And to your point, Sam, I think there was one of the studies came out or surveys that came out. 71% of people wanted more transit, expanded public transit, but only like 13% of people ride it. So you're asking that 60% of it's basically that meme of, support public transit for others to ride and not you. And I don't, that's always just a tough thing to message and really, push for. So I think
more about micro transit.
Somebody wanted more. There we go. Now that it's launched. Oh, so more about microtransit. So the microtransit, it launched in like the Powder Springs, Mableton area a couple weeks ago. And what you do is you go use an app on your phone. It's the CobbLink Go app. And when it's just like Uber. You sit there, you confirm where you currently are, and you call a ride to whatever your destination is within that zone. And it's a $2.50 flat fee to go from point to point within that zone, and it takes you to any destination within that area. And then, of course, you can then take that $2.50 ride back home or whatever it is. I've used it. It's been fantastic. There are questions about microtransit as more people ride it. How does it scale? So I'm definitely interested to see it. Say Powder Springs does that one of their festivals, or Austell or Mableton, they do one of their festivals, and a lot of people start using it instead of dealing with parking. I'm very interested to see how it how it works.
Yeah, so maybe they'd have to have like surge demand for vehicles running or something.
I would like to
That
see.
service does exist, so I think VIA runs it, right? So there's also the Buck and Buckhead, which I believe is also VIA. So it is something that's kind of starting to show up in the region. And I believe there's a city in Georgia, like a small one. I want to say Valdosta, that has its own service. But there's another small city that uses a VIA-like service that it's a microtransit service.
So yeah, and by all means, if you have questions, you can ask them within the Minty platform as well, or you can leave comments on YouTube, and they're coming in through us as well. So thank you for that. All right, so I'm actually going to play. So on that election, I'm going to play. Kind of what I went. Sam, you and I, we were at the commissioners meeting about a month ago. It was already one of those heated meetings about accessory dwelling units, which we'll talk a little bit more later about. But I thought you said something when you made your public comment that has just resonated with me ever since. And really, as we led into Election Day and now after Election Day, really, I think puts it into perfect words as far as, just how we frame where we go from here. So I'm going to play this video now.
I've seen a lot of good things come from the majority on this board over the past year. Short time I've been involved in politics. I got started here because I wanted to start biking everywhere because I got tired of traffic. This election, whoever is happy or sad after November 5th. And I want to see the good things from the majority on this board, and hopefully the rest of the board, continue into past the election. Even if all of the things I want to happen, we still have work to do. We still have people who don't have adequate access to transportation. We still have people who don't have adequate access to housing. And we still don't have safe streets for people to bike and walk on. And we need to address those issues no matter what happens. These are core fundamental issues that a municipality has to deal with, and we're going to have to continue to work together as a community to find solutions to these issues, because they're not going to go away whether something passes or fails.
So Sam, I just, I think that puts perfect words into where we are today after the election, after the, MSPLOS failure, after, maybe some of the things that happen at the federal level that kind of give us a little bit of unease. But really, we have work to do still, and we have, especially at the local level. So with that, I'm kind of going to hand the keys over to you, Connor, here. And as we can talk about, what is a better Cobb, and and just tell everyone a little bit about who we are.
Yeah, so as you can see, we're a better Cobb. We strive to advocate for resilient communities, and that can mean a lot of things, right? So that could mean multiple ways to get around. That could mean financially resilient. That could mean there's some multiple ways of that, but what we really want to focus on is, attainable housing, right? So that people can, they're able to, afford what they can, because right now housing is just unacceptably high. It's very costly, but a lot of the reason for that is because we have incredibly restrictive zoning codes and other local restrictions that cause building to be in low supply. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that our local governments are able to support what we built, right? So this kind of sprawling land use model we have right now in Cobb is very costly. It's the most costly form of development that we have in the world. So if neighborhoods are allowed to slowly, incrementally develop over time, kind of maybe go from a single family home into like something like a row house, like just slowly over time that we can start to build this housing, maybe we can catch up. But in addition to that, the resiliency also comes into like safe streets, so people need to be able to get around without having to have a car. So we want to be able to get around there. We want, obviously better transit we've talked about, and we've talked about attainable housing. So those are kind of the three big focuses we're doing on. Transit has been our focus over the last few months just because of MSPLOS. Safer streets is becoming more and more of a focus as we continue to see a lot of deaths in the county. There's been a lot of pedestrian deaths just crossing the road just to live their lives. I mean, it's not like they've been doing anything crazy or outlandish, and even if they were, there's no reason to die to traffic violence. And attainable housing, that's a very recent focus that we've had. There's been talks of ADUs, which are accessory dwelling units in Kennesaw, um, toward the middle of last year, or sorry, the middle of this year. There was a talk with that focused around the Airbnb treehouse. Um, so that's an opportunity for us to get attainable housing. So an accessory dwelling unit is, say you have a single family lot with a large backyard, maybe you could build like a granny cottage or something back there where your college child could live, or maybe you could rent it out, or your elderly parent. Something to give us a little more variety in our housing, because not the single family home does not fit everybody's needs. I don't think a single family home would fit my needs right now. I don't want a large yard. I don't want to just have to maintain a lot of exterior structures. So I'm actually in a multifamily, like a condo complex, and that's honestly a rare thing in Cobb. It's just not that common. So that's what we're trying to improve, and try to expand those type of things in the county. Okay, so we got this participation here. Yes, it says rank which issues you find most important. We have attainable housing, so that's what we're talking about. Attainable being, affordable is the type of housing you need, etc. Better transit. So right now we do have a transit system, but it is a little, it's really a covered system just for the people who can't, have no other option. And then safer streets, obviously. So that's just, being able to walk around the county, get to your destinations on foot or bicycle, without getting injured or something. So I see here we have one vote in. It's attainable housing, safer streets, and better transit.
How do we do all three most important?
Yeah, I know it's hard to rank them. I think housing is on top of everybody's mind right now. Of course, it's just so. I mean, I remember when I first got out of school. I've been out of school like 10 years now, but 2014, I was paying in Marietta rent like, I want to say $650 a month. And I looked at that apartment now, and it's like $1,200.
Oh, it's depressing. And then for me, it's, I could have bought a house years ago for 150, 200,000, and now, nope, not anymore.
Yeah. For this, it's like $500K for like a small little single family home. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we're seeing, it's pretty clear, I think with the group that's watching tonight, we've got attainable housing and safer streets being kind of 1 and 2, with better transit being, a little bit behind that. But the most important part of all of this is that they're all intertwined. They're all related in some way. They're all, they're all connected, whether it's the land use and zoning, or how we get around without a car, or, all of the above, how walkable our neighborhoods are. All of that's related in all three of these pieces. And that's kind of why A Better Cobb is kind of advocating across all three of those areas.
Yeah, I think we did the numbers at one point, or Tyler did, right? So it's like 90+% of the county is this bar single family zoning. There's a very large portion of the county is just one type of housing. And there's a good chunk of it that has a very large lot size that's required.
At some point, they're going to try to annex Paulding or something. So
yeah, merge Paulding and Cobb. But part of the reason, like to Matt's point, we don't have safer streets is because everybody has to drive everywhere. And everybody has to drive everywhere because the housing is so spread out, because the lots are so big, because everything's single family housing, and we have not very good transit because of those things too. So they're all connected. I mean, if we don't have a different type of development pattern, transit really does not make a lot of sense here. And if we don't really redesign our streets and look to a different development pattern, I mean, it's going to be hard to make them safer, because otherwise we're just going to have highways going everywhere to get them to their houses.
So how do we advocate for those three things? What are the ways A Better Cobb is trying to achieve that, Connor?
Yeah, so we have education, and that could be a campaign, or just like tabling at events and talking to people. We have engagement, so that's typically showing up to your county or city meetings. Alignment, that's essentially kind of what we're doing here now, right? We're talking about the issues we face, And then, finally, community. So we are a Better Cobb social club. We try to bring people together who are like-minded. Either if it's just a meetup or a bike ride, we're trying to expand more events like that to get people involved and thinking about their community.
And let's talk a little bit about like where we are as an organization and what we're trying to do here in 2025.
Yeah, so for the short-term goal, we're doing a few things. We're trying to become a more of an organized structure. We have been very, very loosely organized for the past, I guess, I don't know how long it's been now, 2 years. I've only really been involved last year.
3 years.
It's been very loose.
It's all been a part of my, so making it more official would be helpful.
Yeah, so we're looking at like how can we organize more formally. So is that like a 501c3, C4? What exactly does that look like? Establishing a board, and that's something we're kind of do, amongst ourselves. But if anybody has expertise in say accounting and stuff, that's something we need on a board like that, right? So if anybody wants to join, reach out. That's there's a lot of different roles we'd have to fill if we were to make a board and that type of structure. In addition, there's the member census. So our members are kind of like, if you say you're in a Better Cobb, you're in a Better Cobb, right? It's not really too formal. We have different levels of activity. So some people are highly engaged and they're talking to each other every day. And then some people, you might see them at events and that's it. And that's fine. Everybody can move at their own pace and be as engaged as they can be. But it'd be nice to know who they are, how active they are, what they want to see, where they want to go. And then I guess we need to, launching a newsletter, keep those people who are maybe a little more distant, like aware and stuff. So that's kind of the short term, maybe the next 3 to 6 months. Long term, over the next year, we're trying to increase civic engagement. So right now we're looking at a goal of maybe like 80. We want an attendance of 80% of council meetings by an ABCer, and with a report. So that would go into the newsletter. And then ideally we would drive attendance of others besides maybe just like a more active ABC member. So maybe we get events where you go to the Smyrna City Council meeting and have beers after, or we all make public comment at the Cobb County Commission meeting. Just try to get people out there involved and knowledgeable, because that was clearly a problem with the IMSS lost. We are focusing on Marietta, Smyrna, and Kennesaw, because that's where most of our member base is right now. We do have a few people in like one in Powder Springs that is relatively active, but we hope to expand across the county. And we're continuing like monthly community events, right? So the two ones we have typically are the monthly meetups. Those happen on Wednesdays. You can look at the Facebook page and find out when those are. And we also do monthly bike rides. Typically led by Sam in Marietta, starting at the Marietta Market. And those, they typically run an hour. We just ride, I think it's 5 miles, about 5 miles, and then we meet back up and maybe have coffee and talk. Next year, we're also looking to do some more volunteer, maybe like a tactical urbanism type of thing. So, is there a place we could sell some benches for, transit riders so that they can have a place to sit? If we notice that there's a lot of people there that have to stand while they're waiting, because a lot of our stops are pretty poor in the county. Or could it just be a trash pickup? Something to get people out, looking at their community. What are the small things we could do to make things better? That would be the goal for those.
I love your parking day idea. I think that's been kind of passed around a couple of times. So
yeah, parking day would be fun.
I
think it would be fun to show up in a park, like an actual park, like a park parking lot. So say like Jonquil Park, close to where I live, and just like have like a coffee pop up, put out some cafe tables, and maybe give some free coffee and let people come up and just drink and talk and sit. Kind of do like a impromptu placemaking for a day. Parking day, and they pay for a spot in downtown Marietta and put a little pop-up park there. Stuff like that would be a lot of fun.
I love it. There actually is a parking lot that was just converted to a park recently that just opened.
Oh,
for
really?
those that don't know it. So, yeah. So, more and more of that would be great to see. All right. So we've got some upcoming events. We've already got a pretty busy schedule here for the remainder of November. So Connor, if you want to kind of go through some of those.
Yeah, so we do have a Google Calendar. I don't know if you can put that in the chat, or if I can. I have to look and see.
Is it updated on our website? The
Better
Cobb website.
It's on our website. So if you go to bettercobb.com, you can get to the calendar there. And also we try to keep things on Facebook too. But you got the county DOC meeting, the Board of Commissioners meeting, that's happening tomorrow, which will be the first one after the election. Yeah, I think there's going to be, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there's going to be some talk on ADUs. I can't remember now.
So the public hearing for the code changes, which includes the ADUs. So I say we go through all these events, and then we're going to wrap it up here at the end, talking a little bit more detail about the ADUs. So,
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, yep.
Yeah, then there's a McCollum Parkway meeting, which is kind of a redesign of that area. I'm not super familiar with that, but we can talk about a little more. But the Casual Marietta Bike Ride, that's one of the events I talked about. We have the Alabama Creek Greenway Trail study. Everybody loves greenways. That's like probably one of the most popular things in the county, just like trails and sidewalks. We're going to meet up this month in Kennesaw at the Horndale Brewery. So what we've been doing lately is rotating between Smyrna, Marietta, and Kennesaw. So you see November, we're meeting in Kennesaw. In December, we're going to meet back in Smyrna, most likely like Cafe Lucia or something. And then the Board of Commissioners meeting right before Thanksgiving again.
Yep. And so notice everyone, usually the Board of Commissioner meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. But because of Thanksgiving this month, the schedule is a little bit different. And I think it's going to be the same thing in December as well. So just it's the next Thursday instead of the fourth Tuesday. So just FYI, everyone, this month is a little different than normal. And the reason why I bring that up is both the meeting on Tuesday, tomorrow, Tuesday, 9 a.m., and then Thursday, November 21st at 7 p.m., both of those meetings will have a public hearing for the county code changes. And in that proposal is an accessory dwelling unit proposal. And you're seeing I'm seeing a lot of noise and what I'm calling fear mongering, around the county. And what I'm going to wind up doing here is playing another video where we can see some of the public comments that are being made about accessory dwelling units. And so for a little bit of a background, accessory dwelling units are kind of like what's being proposed by the county is that it's basically just defined as, it's adding a definition to the county code, but instead of it being a build by right, which is something we would be for, it is actually a special land use permit. So people who want to build this still have to go in front of the commissioners to get approval. So they would still have to go through an entire application process to be able to build an accessory dwelling unit. So with that in mind, including a public hearing to be able to get it. So with that in mind, I'm going to play this video of some of the recent public comments.
I see this as an atom bomb falling on Cobb County. And in 10 years, we won't recognize it. It'll end up being much like Staten Island.
You once said that Cobb is not an island. Cobb, it has been an island in the sea of Atlantic insanity, and that's why we moved here. We want Cobb to be an island. So FEMA, Secret Service, Build Back Better, EV charging are all federal disasters. We don't want Cobb transformed into a federal disaster. If we keep the Dobbins tax base, we don't need ARPA or AFFH or ARC or ADU, and we keep Cobb government to its manageable size.
So who else is pushing DEI? Who else is pushing ADUs? And guess what that common denominator was? It was the World Economic Forum. Well, guess what? They're all intertwined with the World Economic Forum because they're partners. They're going to Davos. So they find out what the World Economic Forum wants, and then they come back to us and sell it to us. So this whole thing, that UDC, that's undermining and destroying Cobb County.
We understand perfectly well. The plan will bring rental units into backyards, increase density, and change the very character of your neighborhoods. The county attorney said HOAs will protect neighborhoods, but why the hell doesn't this board? Chair Cupid's priority is cramming through as much housing as possible into every space, not preserving the suburban community we choose to live in. You claim this won't lead to backyard rentals, but that's exactly what it does. Your affordable housing adequates and Chair Cupid will pave the way for rentals wherever they can fit, turning our neighborhoods into rental zones where owners will no longer want to stay.
Wow.
So and you're seeing, I saw an AJC headline actually. I'm actually going to hold it up here. Let me actually go to full screen real fast. That way
That's easy.
I can see it.
radical.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're just seeing. Let's see.
Yeah,
You're seeing this just level of just fear mongering nonsense that's taking place, and I've got we've got a kind of a article up on abettercobb.com that literally takes what the county like codes are, like the projected county code changes are, and it's just like, you have to live on your property in order to build one. It's got, lot size requirements, parking requirements. It can't be allowed for short-term rentals. Again, it is a special land use permit. You got to go through this entire process just to get it approved, just to be able to build it. And so it's not like everyone's going to be doing this, or it's going to be, the wild, wild west. It literally is, it's crazy right now. And, yeah, no. And so the difference, I just saw a comment pop up in YouTube about how ADUs are completely legal right now. Why are these people up in arms? And so ADUs of a certain type are currently legal. If they're currently attached to the home, the part of the proposal is removing the requirement to be attached to the home. So actually having detached ADUs, and, but again, like, why are people up in arms when, and the application in order to build an ADU costs thousands of dollars. So it's not like everybody is going to sit there and build a brand new ADU and all of, and it's just, and so, Sam, I know you were at the same meeting I was at, as far as, the public comment, all of that. Talk a little bit about what your experience was and just what you see as far as the county, and some people's responses to this.
It seems like there's people who have lived here for a while, not necessarily their age, but there's people who have lived there for a while, and they don't want to see their neighborhoods change. And anytime you propose anything, as we saw with the UDC, they'll fight back against it, and they'll bring their neighbors to fight back against it, and it creates this echo chamber of misinformation. So I remember Matt had a one-on-one conversation with somebody on the other side, and he's like, there's a special land use permit required, this and that, this and that. And it was like, wow, I didn't know that, because they describe every change that's coming from this majority on the board as something that's fundamentally going to destroy the county. So I think that speaks to the importance of why we want to keep building community and why we need to grow more, because these are positive changes that are being proposed to help people in the county. And the only people who are coming out in force for or against anything is the other side, who is spreading misinformation and disinformation. And if we don't keep showing up for these fights, we'll never have ADUs, we'll never have better transit, we'll never have safer streets, we'll never have affordable housing. So yeah.
And it's interesting because Kennesaw is actually currently having a very similar conversation. So for those who don't know, accessory dwelling units, what you build on your property, everything is defined by building codes, zoning codes, land use maps, everything. They tell you what you can do with your property, what you can build, what you can't build, how tall it can be, how big it can be, how many parking spots are required, all sorts of other details. And every city controls their own maps and their little arbitrary lines that determines what their city lines are. And then the county, if there isn't a city that has that land, the county then manages the land use there. And so this is a proposal to create a process that defines accessory dwelling units as something that people can build on their own property that they own. And so you're just seeing the NIMBYism and the fear mongering just come out in full force. Like, you've got the school board chair came out and sat there and said that this is going to completely cause chaos in our schools because of the transient students. And that's just such fear-mongering language, when really all it does is create a process for people to get a permit to build a smaller unit on the property that they already own and live on. And this is just crazy to me.
That's going to likely be like less than way less than 1% of all single family homes.
Probably won't even be 0.5%.
I mean, you're talking, and maybe it does go, but it still goes to the commissioners, and the commissioners at any point can sit there, and they can upzone any area too. For the record, this allows them the opportunity to create a special land use permit to allow somebody who owns land. And one more thing to add, it has to adhere to all HOA covenants, bylaws, all that. So if you live in an area with a HOA, guess what? They can control what fence you can build. They can sure control whether you can build an ADU in your backyard or not. Yeah. So it's just crazy that, like, until when you go after the special land use permit, you've got to show that your house, your property is not beholden to any of those covenants or bylaws. And if they are, they will not let you build it. And it's just, so the impact here is going to be very, very small. Unfortunately, it's like too small to really have a large impact, but you're already seeing, but it's one lever that we can pull, but it's still like, for this level of fear mongering to come out, it's unreal. And
a couple things on the fear monger I do want to unpack, but like, if you talk about, they talked about an atom bomb being dropped on Cobb and like the radical change it would bring. For once we already addressed the point, like, one, none of this change would be radical. This would be very small. I mean, this is like the definition of incremental growth, which, we're strong towns, local conversation. And strong towns is very much about incremental growth. So slowly changing a neighborhood or a place over time, very slowly at the rate that's acceptable to the people around them. And number two is like, they don't want things to change, right? Well, one thing that Chuck Morone, the founder of Strong Towns, is very, he'll say a lot is, no neighborhood should be forced to change, but no neighborhood should be exempt from change. And if you think about the mechanism for any place in our county that's essentially a single family zoning, I mean, there's really no way for it to become something else. We have literally single home plots that it can never change. I mean, it's going to be like that forever because we have no mechanism for anybody to buy right to maybe gently intensify the area and put a corner store in. This is not possible. So we have built 90+% of our county in a state of stasis, which is just not sustainable.
It's kind of crazy how they just lie and come out in force against anything that this board proposes. They could propose we're gonna give everybody a free lollipop and they'd say no.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, I don't, I to be honest, I wasn't in Cobb during maybe 5+ years ago at that point in time, but, I've come back, but, I'm curious if the makeup of the board are different. Would these same people be talking about the World Economic Forum? Would they be talking about Davos, DEI, and all that stuff,
We also have to talk about like what ADUs, like what purpose they serve in terms of serving the community. So when we're talking about an ADU, it's extremely expensive to build, depending on where you live, of course. So in somewhere like Seattle, where they've built out, they have a very liberal, lax ADU ordinance. Still, it is like 1%, or is this? I think it's Portland. It's 1% of all of single-family home lots have an ADU on them. 1%. They've had this ordinance for years. So it's incremental, but the use case for people building ADUs. So they're expensive to build. So at first you're going to have people renting them as short-term rentals, and then you're also going to have people just using them as rentals in general. And that's so.
But the short-term rentals are not allowed in the current county proposal.
Short-term rentals are not allowed.
So I just wanted to add to that.
Generally speaking, on ADUs, so they can recoup some of that cost. So rentals and short-term rentals, which are not in what the counties are proposing, are to generate a lot of revenue to recoup some of that cost. But these end up being units that serve elder family members who can't really take care of themselves anymore. Maybe they want to downsize and go to a smaller home. Students who don't have housing options and they still want to live with their parents, but they want some semblance of independence. And also, you buy a new home, have a mortgage on it. What if it has an ADU on the lot already? You can rent that out and start helping pay off your mortgage. So it's an income stream for homeowners and people who own land that they want to repurpose it. And it's also helps other family members that you have more housing options instead of having to go rent out an expensive apartment or to go live in an elder home community.
And this brings back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, where years ago you could buy a house here in Cobb County for $200,000, right? And with that mortgage, you're talking that mortgage is probably around a little bit short of $1,000 a month, depending on so many other factors. But like that's attainable for many families, a $800 to $1,000 mortgage. Now you look and you're seeing very small single family homes, and some of them times they're not small just because of the lot requirements that are put on as far as our zoning codes. But the supply is now so low that even the smallest homes are going for $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and they're no longer attainable for a family working on, unless you have both parents have a 6-figure income or something, like it's very impossible, very difficult for people to attain their first home. And what you're seeing is, unfortunately, a lot of people of next generations are not able to get that head start in their life and start building equity and start buying a house. And so I'm very passionate about this because that kind of describes my situation, personal. And and it's frustrating that I would love to have like a carriage house or some smaller area in a walkable area for me to live and raise my son in, but it's just outlawed. The county just doesn't let it happen, and the cities just don't let it happen. And so being able to allow that enables me to now have more housing options, and that also enables so many others to have housing options also. And personally, I would love to live in a vibrant area where there's a lot of people. And somebody just left a comment. All the new construction going on is $1 million plus. You're talking some of the smallest units are 600, 800,000, and it's just like, who could buy that? I know I can't.
You come to these meetings, city level, county level, you will see people fight tooth and nail. They will not give an inch. You try to build an apartment building nowhere close to where they live, they will fight you. You try to build new single family homes, they will fight you. They try to build townhomes, whatever, yada yada, they'll fight you. So they don't want any more housing. They don't want new people coming in to find different types of housing.
And the other thing they don't want, and this underlines everything, is they don't want change.
Correct.
We're talking about the most restricted, most I'm trying to think, just like very, like, again, we're talking like very little change here. And people are talking about being radical, changing the county, underlining the fabric of the county. All of these, dropping an atom bomb on the county and turning us into Staten Island. Like, I can't even, I get too worked up just even thinking about it. But but that's where we are as a county. And that's why we need, and we encourage people to show up. You don't have to speak to the first one, but if you start showing up to these meetings, you start seeing that crowd that just keeps showing up and keeps showing up. And they're against literally everything. And I always love doing this. Like, everyone knows what a NIMBY is. NIMBY, not in my backyard. But I always love asking people, do you guys know what a cave is?
I don't.
Constantly against virtually everything. Mm-hmm. And then my favorite one is banana. Anybody know what a banana is? Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. And so that's not just a NIMBY. They're just against everything. And you see that, and it's constant. And so that's why we encourage people to show up, be there, be that energy for things, and be supportive of things. So, this is the long list.
It is hard. It can be hard to do that because, look at this first one on the 12th. Tomorrow's 9 a.m. The people who show up to these meetings regularly, to be honest, lots of them are probably retired. This is like their hobby. They have time to do this. And whereas there's a lot of people that are working who tomorrow I'm not gonna be able to take off at 9 a.m. to go to this Board of Commissioners meeting because I have a lot of important meetings tomorrow. It's kind of how it goes. So it's just the public input is really geared toward those who have a lot of time. And so it really disadvantages the people like transit riders who can't get there, or people with kids, people who are busy. It makes it really hard.
And that's why collectively we want to really, the education part and the engagement part, we want to bring in a more diverse group, a bigger tent, I guess is the best way to say it, to start showing up to these meetings. That way it's not all dependent on just a few showing up to all of them, but we have more people, and we're all collectively, showing that there's a greater movement for this.
And these aren't just people blowing smoke. Like, they come. So Lisa Cupid, she just won her election. She won by I think 10 points or something, right?
Yep.
So this is just my prediction. I don't have a crystal ball. She's probably never going to lose an election as long as Cobb County stays blue. So even though she has that mandate from the voters, These 10 people showing up to every meeting constantly, they have sway, and maybe they take that heat and they direct it at some commissioner and they say, maybe I'm not so sure about this vote anymore. So they successfully got bike lanes removed from one project. They successfully got a multi-use trail delayed on Lower Roswell Street. So these people keep showing up, 10 people, 15 at most, speaking, and they get projects delayed, they get projects canceled, and they sway the votes of commissioners. So if we also do that, we have that same power. So it doesn't take many people to actually get things done and affect change.
And to your point, Sam, we've already done that on some meetings and some things as well. So we have that energy and we have some of those wins already that just proves that, yeah, just a small, consistent, aligned momentum helps for us to achieve some of the things that we're achieving. And we're just, yeah, we're going to keep expanding that. We're going to keep, getting small wins here and there, whether it's transit, housing, or safer streets. And we're going to keep this momentum going, and we're going to keep making Cobb County better. So with that, I'm going to, and again, for these events, go to Better Cobb. We've got a calendar on our website for all of our upcoming events. So this is a very open-ended question for everyone. It's simply, what would you like to see that would make Cobb better, make a better Cobb?
Amtrak.
Type it in.
Yeah, one thing about the ADUs and like walkable neighborhoods, it's if I go to a city, like say a random city, like even like Birmingham, Alabama, the interesting neighborhoods are the ones that have like changed slowly over time, right? They might have started out as like a streetcar suburb, but then a house got turned into a coffee shop or a brewery, or a church got turned. Things that change slowly over time to where they can build and modify and meet the needs of the residents around. Those are the interesting places we want to be, and not not monoculture suburbia that we often enforce legally.
All right, people, keep putting in your ideas. We see there's walkable neighborhoods is one, MARTA, more parklets, less parking, and more places like Smyrna Market Village or Marietta Square. So again, if you go to Minty.ooh, emphasis on mass transit to and from Braves games, that's a good one. Walkable areas that are affordable. I like it. So these are coming in. These are all, and that's kind of what we are as a group is, there's all these ideas that can make Cobb better, but if we can focus on individual ones together as a group, it's more likely for each of these to get done. And so that's one of the things that we strive for.
All of these things that we want to get done, though, are going to require community. So while you're typing in these questions, just remember to, if you know anybody else who's interested, just try to get them involved in little small ways. Because, we're going to need to build a community. As we just saw with MSPLOST, people didn't know about it because we don't have community reach.
And to Sam's point, on all of these, there's a community that will show up against it. Exactly. And so that's why we need to make sure that we have that community showing up for it.
It's really easy to find people who are against anything. It's hard to find people who are for stuff. Yeah, that's at the city level too. I mean, we talked about the county a lot, but even the cities, there's like, I think, a townhome development that was going in Atlanta Road in Smyrna, and there's a lot of pushback against the townhomes that cost $800,000 a unit, for those even to be built.
People are against walkable neighborhoods. They started a conspiracy about 15-minute cities. It's amazing.
Yeah. While we all go vacation in Charleston, Savannah, Disney World, and stuff like that.
And then come back to our drivable. Yeah.
I want that life, but not where I live.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end back here at the 2025 ABC goals as we look forward to next year. If anybody has any final questions in the YouTube chat, please leave a comment. We're more than happy to, answer or talk about that topic. But I wanted to go back here because this 2025 member census, if you go to bit.ly/A, B, C 2025, so that's bit.ly/ABC, all capital letters, 2025. And we'll be sharing this link out with everyone. It will be a big push. That will be the 2025 member census, where it's about a 10-15 minute survey. We're really just going out there and asking everyone that we know, what are their priorities? What are their ideas? How much do they want to help? all of that stuff. So please take the member census and that's something that's coming soon. And then go to our website and see the events calendar on our website to see all of the different civic engagement opportunities and community opportunities, just to meet the community that are for these things as well. So with that, any final messages, Connor or Sam?
Come to our meetup. We have our bike ride again. Like I just want to reiterate, we got that this weekend in Marietta. So me and Sam Sam, are you going to be there? Yep. So we'll both be there.
For which one?
Yep. And then we have the Horndal Brewing in Kennesaw next week on Wednesday night. That's kind of more just like a happy hour type of thing. We just talk, maybe give updates, kind of just chat and communicating network. So hope you're able to join us and just have a nice couple hours or an hour and a half or so.
So do you want to get that question, Matt, or should I answer it? Somebody just
So Claire, somebody in the comments just asked, are there any new ideas or projects A Better Cobb is considering for future MSPLOS cycles, or do you see a shift towards different funding models for transportation efforts entirely? And that's a great question. I think we're all kind of reeling from what happened last week as far as the results. I think if there is a shift, it might be to maybe a shorter time frame or something like that. And I do want to make a point here that the state doesn't invest anything in transit, very little. And so the whole reason why Cobb County had to basically go for a grand slam is because in order to run an effective transit operations, it costs money, and we're kind of on our own to raise that money. So that's why I think we can kind of say we went for the grand slam. In the future, we might go for singles and doubles, maybe. That's one takeaway to possibly take from it. The other one is there are still things that we can do today that don't require funding to make transit operate better today. And so that's when it comes to microtransit, when it comes to bus stops and shelters, when it comes to operating better transit for the Braves game, which I saw that was one of the ideas that was put in there. There's opportunities to make transit work better today, get more people to take transit to where they start asking for more and more and more and more and more. And wouldn't that be a great situation to be in? If we get more riders taking transit today, asking for more transit, that means it's going to be more likely that a vote gets passed in the future. So, I think it's kind of a short term, okay, what can we do today without billions of dollars of funding? And then, okay, now how are we now better prepared for if we were to go back to voters and ask for, to ask for approval for that. That's kind of my position on it. What's yours, Sam?
I think so that yes. Also, people talking about taxes, sales tax. I think that is something that we should probably address. To your point, Georgia does not fund public transit within the state of Georgia pretty much at all. There's rare exceptions. So we pretty much have a couple options. We have property tax, which is what we're doing now. We have sales tax, and then we have federal grants. Those federal grants are probably not going to come anytime soon for the time being. So it'll probably be some sort of sales tax, I think, if we try this again. But like Matt said, I think it'll probably be a shorter time frame or something else entirely.
Yeah, and that's how MART is funded, right? It's a sales tax. That's partly how MART is funded. That's one of the funding streams, in addition to revenue and some grants and such. But and just to be clear, like all that the funding source is dictated by the state. I mean, there's only so much Cobb can really do other than like raise property taxes and fund it through that. That's not dictated by the state. So, personally, what I would really want to see is more of a regional focus again. I mean, I know we had T-SPLOS, a decade ago, but it would be nice to have more of a regional wide focus on like, how do we fund transit? What do we want it to look like and such? Because going off on our own, maybe it was enabled by the state. I don't know that it's the best solution for the region.
It's definitely a mistake. 2026 is going to be our soonest opportunity to try to change that. Although we'll have little effect on how that turns out.
Yeah, I think there's conversations going on about what the next steps are now. And I mean, also when we talk about smaller things, like I think there's foundational things that need to get built, like the transfer centers. And the transfer centers, I think, can be funded from other funding sources as well, whether that's the SPLOS revenue above projections, whether it's other funding sources. Federal grants can go to that as well. I think there's some foundational solutions that we can still build out, even though MSPLOS didn't provide that dedicated funding.
Yeah, I think even just like awareness, we talked about the Braves several times, transit to the Braves, more mass transit. I mean, no, we do have our, like, one of the, at one point was like the highest ridership route in the Southeast at one point. No, I don't think it is anymore. The Rapid 10 and the Local 10, those combined right there. Yeah, they go right by the stadium, and there's really no advertisement about it. There's really no awareness that it does that. So no one takes it. I mean, I've been on the bus and people are going to it, but going to it, but maybe it's a handful, like 5, 10 around the game time.
So there's a lot we can do. Just because I'm Splashville doesn't mean it's the end. It's definitely a setback because in however many years we're gonna do another one, whatever it is, we're gonna say, man, we could have had countywide microtransit by now. But it is what it is. Gwinnett's us in Gwinnett, we haven't had adequate transit for decades. This is a small part of a story that's going to continue, and hopefully will end soon with us getting better transit.
And I do agree. I think we mentioned it kind of obliquely, but like the incremental thing's really probably going to be the way to go. I mean, we really let's build a few routes that make a lot of sense, get people to a certain destination, or even micro transit, and just like kind of build out success from there. The one and done thing has been the approach, like Matt said, just because of federal dollars, trying to pay for it locally without seeing state help. But the next best way, I guess, would be, do it slowly, locally, kind of build up from the ground up. Smaller sploss, if we do sploss, to smaller things that are manageable to implement and try out.
So we're at about 6 minutes over, and unless a question comes in, if you want to ask a question, now's the time. I'm going to end it with one last question for, I guess, each of us and everyone in the chat too. If there was one thing that could happen in Cobb in the next year, in 2025, that you want to see happen, what is that?
I'd want everybody to be able to develop to the next increment of density by right. So, if you're a single family home, I want you to be able to build a duplex. If you're a duplex, I want you to be able to build a small apartment building, something like that, by right. I don't want this everything's in stasis. I'm ready to be passed.
Mandated bike parking in, county-wide, but in Marietta at the very least.
I would have to go, I want microtransit to be successful to the point where they actually already think about expanding it. And if that happens, I think that takes, it's a great first step to seeing that continue to spread. So with that, I think, like I said, go to bit.ly/ABC 2025. That's our, that's our like membership survey. Everyone takes it, helps get us feedback as far as what the community wants. And and that's it. That's, I think, the final bit of this. And hopefully this was successful. This is our first time doing it. So if there's a little raw or had some rusty moments, but overall, I think that's going to be something that we do more in the future as we look to just continue these conversations. Have a good night, everyone.